are these people?
Kenya warned us. Yeah, I'm bringing an Africa story, not my co-host this time. I know that's odd. But you know, sometimes
the black person must bring the Africa stories all the time,
right? Yeah. So this is from Phil Miller over at Declassified UK, and he's talking about how Kenya warned British Army about dangerous ammunition decades ago. With politicians in Nairobi holding an inquiry into the UK's military presence in Kenya, another family bereaved by British Army negligence speaks out. And I think you're seeing Africa as a whole push back on its Western counterparts in lots of ways. And I think this might be one of them. So did you get a chance to read any of this? If not, whatever.
No.
Cool.
But I think I did see something in relation to this earlier today. I think I sent you something that might relate to this.
Yeah, I think I've got that video. So, but I see what you sent me, and I'll pull it up as well. So Kenya's military privately rebuked their British counterparts over lax handling of ammunition years before it emerged that hundreds of civilians had been harmed by unexploded ordnance from UK Army exercises. As early as 1985, a Kenyan officer complained that the British Army is lax in their handling of ammunition and explosives, according to the military report found by Declassified UK. The unnamed officer registered his concern after a mechanic was blown up by British ordnance in Nanyuki, the garrison town 90 miles north of Nairobi, where UK troops have a training camp. So, the victim, 27-year-old Yahir Muhammad, had a wife and 4 children. His eldest, Ali, is still traumatized from losing his dad at age 9. When I see the British Army in Nanyuki, I see my father dying, he told Declassified. Although Yahir's death was far from an isolated incident, it would take another 2 decades for the British military to publicly admit that more than 1,000 Kenyans had been harmed by its unexploded ordnance. These hazards are now being investigated by MPs as part of an inquiry into abuses by the British Army Training Unit Kenya, otherwise known as Batuk. Right? So, committee chairman Nelson Koech had promised the probe will be thorough, saying whether it dates back to independence from Britain in 1963, we have to get to the bottom of it. The evidence uncovered by Declassified UK suggests that much of the suffering could have been prevented decades ago had lessons been learnt from Yahir Muhammad's death in June 1985. So I had this video here that Declassified put together along with it that we're going to watch. But anything you wanted to say on this before we head into that?
Smells like Ukraine to me.
It smells like a lot of places, don't it?
Well, I said Ukraine.
Right? So, yeah, especially since they're about to get uranium ones. So, you know, whatever. It smells like a lot of things we talked about here with the testing of explosives, especially nuclear ones.
Right.
So, yeah, it's almost like war is fucking terrible all around. But anyway, we're going to watch this. This is at the National Assembly, right? So between the UK and Kenya here.
These soldiers got away with this murder.
If it was an ordinary Kenyan out there in Britain, by now he would be languishing in their jails.
We must continue to reject the continuous domination of the white man on our land.
Explosives being left uncollected and unattended to, and blowing up young boys.
This government should not allow foreigners to take advantage of our people.
Order number 10, motion, ratification of the agreement between Kenya and the United Kingdom on defense cooperation.
Agnes Wanjiru is a 21-year-old lady who died brutally, and we believe was murdered by the British Army, and had a 5-year-old child at that time. UK Army, did not want, they decided to brush this under the carpet. Let's reverse the roles and look at it differently. What if Agnes Wanjiru had killed a white soldier? What would have been the case? Agnes Wanjiru's body was found 2 months after her brutal murder in a septic tank. The only reason that this body was able to be found was because it had become a Facebook taunt by the UK military officers. And one of them confessed that when they left the bar that night, one of their colleagues committed the heinous murder of Agnes Wanjiru. And 10 years down the line, even though the memories are fading, I don't think it is too late to find justice for the family of Agnes Wanjiru.
Wanjiru is a Kenyan, she's a human being. And looking into how Britain looks into human rights, they should be the first people not to ignore such a thing. That family must be compensated.
These are the human rights we care about. This innocent young girl that died in the hands of these British soldiers in Laikipia, these are matters, the matters of human rights that we want to hear being talked about by Britain to the people of Kenya. We give to outsiders many times at the expense of locals. Because it's surprising that for all the years that the British soldiers have operated in Kenya, they have used our land for training without a specific payment being made to the people of Kenya. And if we extended to several large parcels of land across the country, then I will not be surprised to find many multinationals using our land without having to compensate the people of Kenya or the government of Kenya for the use of that particular land. And sometimes this is where we discriminate against ourselves. And perhaps even, Madam Speaker, how these soldiers got away with this murder was we have a way of giving preferential treatment to outsiders, to foreigners, at the expense of locals, Madam Speaker.
I think this agreement.
How many times we said that exact thing in almost all of these countries?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you know, like,
They're an extension of colonial domination. The British continues to dominate us through some of these agreements by, having their officers train, army people train in our land and pretending to be giving us benefits. Madam Speaker, I heard the British High Commissioner say that since 2016, the British have spent about 5 billion shillings in supporting this program, and this money has gone into benefiting the economy of Kenya. Madam Speaker, this is quite peanuts. If you look at these agreements, they are heavily tinted in favor of the British. Even if you talk about the benefits, the subsistence benefits that I've had from my colleagues, about 500 people employed, some casual laborers, they don't compare, Madam Speaker. And if these agreements are an extension of colonialism, we have to reject them. We need to think beyond the peanuts that this agreement is giving us in terms of employment of a few people. And lastly, Madam Speaker, this issue of Wanjiru is more than just death. It is, for me, an affront on the dignity of a Kenyan. And the fact that the British soldiers can come here and kill one of us, and then they take that officer who allegedly did the killing has been taken back to their country, and then they tell us that the investigation is not sufficient. I think this is really an affront on the dignity of an African. And we must continue to reject the continuous domination of the white man on our land, on the back of saying that they're giving us some peanuts, some employment of 500 people, some little things. So, Madam Speaker, the philosophy behind these agreements is what this parliament needs to focus on, not the little benefits that the British people are giving us.
The matter of Wanjiru is very, very sad. The matter of that young lady is traumatizing, to say the least. And until it is resolved, this country shall never be at peace with itself. Crime is crime, and murder is a crime. And therefore, we cannot exempt murder among those crimes or criminal acts that the host nation is required to try. When you commit murder, Madam Speaker, in a host nation, that host nation must have the jurisdiction to try you. To try you. Whether you have left the country's jurisdiction or not, you must be extradited to face trial. Because we may have similar cases in the future. Yeah, what shall we be telling Kenyans? Especially my good friends from Laikipia who are hosting this facility. That in future, if any other Kenyan would face the fate of Wanjiru, it would just go like that. No, no. We must send out a very strong message that anybody in this country who is aggrieved upon by these forces, the visiting nation forces, will have the chance to get justice.
Soldiers were joking for one of them to say that, oh, you know, my colleague so-and-so killed a Kenyan lady. That should not happen. In the county of Laikipia, in Isiolo, in Samburu, there are cases of unexploded ordnance devices, cases of rapes reported, cases of accidents by Batuk vehicles. What we are asking through this particular agreement is justice must be served in the courts of Kenya, not in the courts of the UK. The areas that Batuk is training in, these are pastoral areas. The pastoralists are normally herders, where they look after cattle, goats, and sheep and camels. Their areas are sparsely populated. Nobody should take advantage of these people. Finally, they could suffer disadvantages because many of them are illiterate. Many of them are people with small means. Nobody and this government should not allow foreigners to take advantage of our people.
I concur with the government of Laikipia County about commitment, the British Army, the Batuk, committing several atrocities to the people of Laikipia, not only that are harmful to the people, but also to the environment. We really remember vividly what happened in Rodaiga, the fire incidents, whereby even today, people are suffering from lung diseases. Some of them have been hospitalized, and we have also lost life.
And even issues, Honorable Speaker, that we have seen of landmines and explosives being left uncollected and unattended to, and blowing up young boys and herders as they had their livestock, Honorable Speaker, that the troops, wherever they train, they also remain very sensitive to the communities around them.
If it was an ordinary Kenyan out there in Britain, by now he would be languishing in their jails. But somebody just walks here and all of a sudden they commit that crime, and again, it's not fair. It is all about protecting Kenyans and not what we gain, the little money that we gain from the few shillings that they spend in some club. That not help us a lot.
Anything to say, K-Bear?
I mean, how often do we need to repeat what we've said this numerous times, you know, in different ways, but it's still the same bullshit in terms of, well, in this case, the only difference is this is the UK, but white colonizers come in, use the global south as their playground, don't clean up their mess,
we'll get US funding,
and the locals get affected.
Yep. Well, and it's not just us that is the cause of these like colonial crap either, you know. It takes a village to, you know, like keep that up. So like but what we are doing is this, which Collin sent me, and I'm sure this isn't helping.
Kenya and the United States have signed a defense agreement. Nairobi will get US funding for leading a UN security mission to the Caribbean island of Haiti to, quote, restore order. Support will also be given for shared security interests in East Africa.
And I also thank the Secretary today for Kenya's willingness to consider leading a multinational security support mission in Haiti. The United States stands ready to support that mission by providing robust financial and logistical assistance. And we intend to work with the United States Congress to provide up to $100 million in support. And we urge others in the international community to follow Kenya's great example.
When all the processes, beginning with the approval by the UN Security Council, are put in place, Kenya is ready, Kenya is willing to lead that multinational peacekeeping force that will go to Haiti.
Past foreign interventions in Haiti have failed to secure peace. Haitians don't believe Kenya's deployment of 1,000 police officers will help.
So they asked military forces, Kenya and the UN become an inter-Haiti military force will not resolve the problems in Haiti is facing
Watchdogs
right now.
also warn against the deployment of Kenyan police officers who have a dismal human rights record. Nairobi believes the US deal will counter an Al-Shabaab insurgency closer to home.
Greatest terror group in East Africa now is Al-Shabaab. They recruit, they radicalize young people for their own terror operations. And the US, under this framework, we are working with them on the whole space of counter-terrorism.
Kenya believes embracing imperialist forces is the answer.
Where have we heard that before?
In stark contrast to West African countries.
that face. What caught that?
That last half paragraph.
Yeah, Kenya believes embracing imperialist forces is the answer. This is that right there, right? Yeah, I know.
Police forces is the answer. In stark contrast to West African countries which are expelling them.
Exactly.
Like which you just saw. We just literally saw examples that those people are straight up killing these people. Like
I hate
yes, I know.
I hate saying this. I do because it gives this impression like it's always the African leaders, the African presidents, prime ministers who are like corrupt as shit.
Yep.
Who will speak like they'll give this big talk in terms of the West is shit and like they're killing our people, whatever, but they're still willing to work with the West when it comes to getting money or to get something, you know, within the elites of their countries in exchange to oppress others.
But you notice they talked about other places in East Africa, Haiti, like they're gonna go take care of Haiti for us,
right?
Like what?
And it's like, and again, where's it? I mean, we have to go back to Brand's summit. Where's the solidarity?
Where's
the solidarity?
Like, it's not there, Collin.
Right? You're saying like in one half, you were saying the British are killing you.
Yeah.
With unmanned weapons, right? Yep. And in the same breath, you're like, oh, we have to work with them and help the colonizers oppress our own in another part of the world because reasons. You can fill in the blank in terms of reasons.
Well, keep in mind what we talked about with what other African countries are doing. You know, I mean, I'm not saying that they're setting examples, but they might be. You know,
right?
So choose your actions carefully is all I'm saying. You know, so you know, who knows, but this article goes into further detail of what these Western powers are willing to do to you. So, you know, keep that in mind when you're wanting to be buddies with them.
But you know what? Before you go on, like I have to preface this with this, like, because we're hearing from the Kenyan leadership.
Sure.
Right? we're not hearing from Kenyan people directly how they feel about this, how they feel about Kenyan police being deployed over in Haiti.
Yeah.
You know, I would argue
they're not happy about it either. Like,
well, if they know about it.
Well, and Kenyan police
I
are
would argue
notorious for human rights abuses.
But I would argue for a regular schmegular Kenyan who's in the bush may not know all of this. So, you know, but so this is kind of why I'm kind of putting more disdain on the leadership that they should know better, because you are a lot more aware of what's happening in the world, and you definitely should be a lot more aware of what's happening in West Africa right now.
Right.
You would think that the last thing you want to do is align yourself with Western powers, especially since a lot of these countries are looking to get into BRICS.
Yes.
Or potentially get into BRICS at some point, and you still want to kind of play games with the West.
Which
Like,
that should be a rule for BRICS. Like, if you're playing with them, you know, like that might not be okay either. So
right, but I mean that kind of puts Brazil and China into account because they're doing the exact same shit.
In some ways, yeah.
Not in some ways, they are.
Yes.
You know, so but I can speak to these smaller countries because, you know, they have no stakes in terms of any economic power that they can necessarily garner for themselves at this point.
Right.
That they don't have any leverage necessarily to make demands of anybody. So, but it's just very disappointing. And again, just the usual talking of both sides of your mouth.
I know. It sucks. I know. It's like the direct dichotomy of both of those things is fucking bullshit. Right. I agree. Well, here's more bullshit. And this is just directly like, don't work for imperialist powers if you're in Africa. Just don't do it. Right? That's what I would say, even at a personal level. So this says, my father used to give the British Army scrap vehicles to go and do artillery practice with. Ali Mohammed said from his home in Nanyuki, where his family still runs a garage. When they finished the artillery firing, they used to give the cars back and tell him he could keep the scrap, Ali explained. One day, the army gave the garage 900 shillings, equivalent to 130 pounds today, which is like, what, almost 200 US?
Yeah.
Yeah. To use a vehicle. Yeah. To use a vehicle for target practice at Impala, a range owned by a family of European settlers. Oh, of course. So, a formerly secret UK military report on the incident says the car was returned to the garage together with ammunition boxes, contrary to British Army standing orders. Yafir was unaware of the danger. He had no idea, Ali said, because with scrap, you could only take metal, and he was just dismantling the car to check the engine was there and see what he could sell as aluminium. That's when the blast happened, Ali recalled. There was something in there that hadn't exploded on the firing range. Britain's High Commissioner, Leonard Allinson, said Yafir blew himself up by hammering a discarded mortar fuse, part of a scrap consignment. An army report said the explosion was heard up to 2 miles away. A Kenyan newspaper report from 1985 about the tragedy, right? UK army men at bomb scene. Police report said that investigations into the accident was due to be finalized soon. Meanwhile, the bomb blast victim was buried last Wednesday. So Yafir lost a hand and suffered several stomach injuries before passing away soon afterward in Nanyuki Hospital. I was with him that day, Ali said. It was Ramadan. We'd been fasting during the day. I came out of school, and that's when it happened. My father passed away. Ali still feels the loss. It's been terrible for us. He was the one who was taking care of everyone in the family. He was my best friend. He was young, handsome, and good-looking. My mom tells me I look just like my dad now, Ali added, with a slight laugh. His father's death followed another mishap that year in which plastic explosives went missing from a British Army exercise at Impala. This prompted a Kenyan military intelligence officer to tell UK officials, considering both incidents, it seems that the British Army is lax in their handling of ammunition and explosives. Norman Ling, a British diplomat, noted, our defense relations with Kenya have taken a knock in recent months, particularly over the Nanyuki incident, in which a Kenyan Asian was killed by an explosion caused by ammunition left behind after a British Army exercise. However, others in authority did not express concern. Files state that Kenya's chief of military intelligence was very relaxed about the death. After the explosion, Ali's uncle had to take over running the garage, and his grandfather, Suleiman Ali Muhammad, sought justice. He instructed a lawyer in Nairobi and appeared willing to accept 850,000, what's the currency there? Shillings. Equivalent of 88,000 pounds today, which is like almost 90,000, right? 100,000?
Close to 100,000.
Yeah, in compensation for the family. A year after the death, Britain's defense attaché, Colonel Roger Sothurst, wrote, we all admit we were responsible. Okay, well, let's stop in there. Someone needs to go to jail. If we're going to admit responsibility. But sadly, the affair still drags on, blaming the claimant's lawyer for inaction. So a commander from the UK Army's legal group visited Kenya in 1987 to review progress on the case. It was proposed they kickstart negotiations at 600,000 shillings, equivalent to 62,000 today in pounds. However, an official felt it is useful for a claimant to be left to prosecute his own case and hinted that they should let sleeping dogs lie. It is unclear from the files seen by Declassified whether any payment was authorized. Ali is unsure if his grandfather, who has now passed away, ever received compensation. Upon learning that Kenya's parliament is holding an inquiry into the British Army, Ali had mixed feelings. I was 50-50 because the years have passed too much and I can't claim anything, and I can't talk to anyone about it. Martin Day, the co-founder of London Law from Lay Day, which has worked on hundreds of similar cases, told Declassified, the level of unexploded ordnance in the central Kenyan Army range is very high indeed. We understand that some 10% of ordnance when fired do not explode, and yet no efforts seem to have been made to systematically clear the land following maneuvers historically. He added the ranges, which are not fenced off from the public, are a terrible hazard to unsuspecting local people, and the area should be cleaned up as a matter of great priority. In 2002, litigation by Lay Day forced the UK to award £4.5 million in compensation to 228 Kenyan civilians bereaved or injured by UXO and blasts stretching back to the late 1970s. Another round of payouts for more than 1,000 claimants followed in 2004. Despite these settlements, problems persisted, and in 2007, a Kenyan man working for the British Army was blown up by a plastic explosive. The victim, Robert Swari Saray, mistook the device for a candle. The UK Defence Minister admitted inadequate training practices contributed to his death. The case had strong similarities with Yafir Muhammad's death in 1985. A further casualty occurred in 2015 when a 13-year-old Samburu boy, Lushoka Leshwan, picked up a mortar fuse. It detonated, costing him both arms and an eye. An investigation found the British military knew the explosive used in the fuse was faulty before the accident took place. The type of ammunition has been since withdrawn from service. So here, a British soldier warns Kenyan school children not to touch mortars. Really? Okay, well, hold on, we'll fix that. You said that earlier, right? That's because I'm not signed into the right one. Hold on. Let's see if I can sign in to the thing. Anything to say on this so far, Care Bear?
I mean,
there's a lot going on.
What more do I need to say other than what I said earlier?
Not much. Yeah, let's do this. And then make a new meeting. Before it kicks us out of Zoom.
I mean, yeah, is the British are bitches in terms of, yeah, we're going to kill you and we don't care, but we're going to use you as far as our colonization plans, and you will do it because we still have this belief that we still own you.
Yeah.
Like just due to historical colonization. So, yeah, it's just.
Here, let me send you a new link. I think I had to leave first. Hold on. Meeting. Technical difficulties are always the funnest stuff. Copy invite link. Send it to Care Bear. Have him join. Cool. That should fix things. There we go. Now we shouldn't be kicked out. Why did it sign me into Zoom? That's strange. Anyway, so a little bit more left to this article. But more recently, in 2021, another 13-year-old boy received burns after igniting a flare left behind by British troops. Schools in that area, which is used for firing live ammunition and white phosphorus chemicals, told the Sunday Nation that children as young as 7 have to be taught how to recognize unexploded bombs. Collin, what's the age of kids you teach?
4 and 5.
4 and 5. Imagine trying to teach 7-year-olds like what unexploded bombs look like. Like, anyway.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Well, again, I've said this. Like,
yeah,
Princess Di. You know, this was her thing. You know, like landmines.
Yep.
You know, like that was her crusade when she was alive, and the idea that
what happened to her?
I think well, what happened to her? But since she's passed, it's like. But that's the thing. No one talks about this anymore.
No,
you know? So now,
especially
it's like,
who did that one. No one talks about that.
Right. Right. But and now it's kind of, again, we're sending cluster bombs to Ukraine. It's like, what a turn coming from her death, that we're now kind of going back to this idea of, yeah, it's okay to bomb people, and yeah, we can just let loose landmines or cluster bombs, and who gives a fuck about the locals who live there, especially if they're kids, like, because fuck them kids.
Yeah.
And
no one cares about them kids.
No, they don't. But...
God. So Britain also has a firing range in Canada, where their license to operate is much stricter. I wonder why. A treaty governing that relationship explicitly requires the UK to pay any responsible cost associated with the removal or destruction of unexploded ordnance at the training area. So they got a better deal out of that. Just for people to make sure. Wonder what the difference is there in Canada and Kenya. Seems strange that they have 2 different deals going on. But
besides, you know, more white people.
That must be it. It must be that. So, anyway. Terrible. But yeah, why would you go run to another imperialist power while you're dealing with one imperialist power? It makes no sense.
It does if they feel like they're able to gain something, and it's going to be a crumb, but you know, and even not for the people, it's mostly for them.
Right.
Like, so it's, again, the idea of like corrupt leadership, and they'll do whatever they want to do in order to maintain their power and maintain their wealth, because it's not necessarily based in the country in which they live. It is based within these imperialist powers. So So I think that's why it's significant that a lot of these West African countries are willing to say now, fuck the West, we're kicking your asses out. Like now, basically, France has gotten the boot formally now in Niger, now, which is great, and I just wish that other countries in the East, especially given that's where Kenya is able to follow suit in that as well. But again, there's just this very odd claim of entitlement, and then on the West part in Africa, and then on the African aspect of it is the idea of like, well, we are dependent on the West to function.
Yeah.
And more especially for these leaders, we're dependent on the West for our livelihood. So I will play nice with them in order to maintain my status.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just horrible. It's
awful in all accounts. Yeah. No solidarity. Yeah. Well, I'm sure people have words about this. Leave it in the comments. People who watch this clip, you got to make sure you engage. That's important. But anyway, speaking of engagement, you got some stuff.